Okay, in the second part of this second unit, we're going to look at email. And again, you may wonder, why bother to study email? Everybody knows how to do email. But email is frequently used in academia as the main means of communication between academics. And if you're communicating with other teams using English as a lingua franca, again, a large part of your work, initially at least, will probably be done via email. And if you're working in English, you need to learn about English rules of politeness for email. So there are various options. You can just learn those by experience, or you can specifically study it and therefore increase your chances of success in the early stages. So in this video, we'll look first at some general principles of email. Okay, first general principle, respond promptly. Generally, you need to respond within one day. And then you say, well, what if I'm really busy that day? Well, at least give them an idea. Say, I've received this email, I'm really busy, I'll get back to you within 3 days. That way they know when to expect a result. What about if you're waiting for an email? General principle, be patient. Once I got an email from someone that I was working with, and they had sent it and I sort of saw it, but I was working on something else. And 15 minutes later, I got a call on Skype. Have you gotten my email yet? Well, yeah, but I haven't had time to look at it. Give time for people to respond. How much time? Well, that depends on how quickly you need a response. But generally, academics will check their email once or twice a day. And so you need to think about how much time they need to respond, but give them at least a day or two to respond before you start bothering them with a phone call. Second general principle, always, always, always use the subject line. And use it in a way that is specific to that conversation. So I've gotten various emails with titles like, hello, PDF talk or need help. What did those mean? I don't really know just by looking at the subject line. Second, if you change the subject line as well, don't keep going on in the same thread forever and ever. If you say meeting 12/12 and it's already January, change the subject line. Principle 3, always identify yourself clearly. Is it really you? In the day of spam, it's sometimes very difficult to know. I received an email from someone that I had corresponded with a couple times, but there was no subject line, no text in the email, and attachments. Am I going to open those? No way. I don't really know whether that person's been hacked, whether it's spam that seems to be coming from them. I don't know. Didn't open it. So make sure there's at least one line, and you and your correspondents often know you have some way of identifying yourself that you'll know, whether it's by use of abbreviations of your name or whatever. They'll know it's from you. But on the other hand, don't over-identify yourself. From one previous iGEM team, every time that I got an email from them, it's like, this is from the leader of the team, this is from the leader of the team, this is from the leader of the team. First line, every time. And that's not really necessary. I mean, after a couple times I know the email, I recognize it, it's only necessary for the first email. And that establishes a basis for the relationship. Principle 4, consider their time. Give enough information for them to act on, but not too much. Be clear, write clearly. What is the purpose of the email? Give them enough background information. What do you want them to do? Why should they do it for you? Make sure that all those are very clear and as succinct as possible. And that means sometimes, instead of just writing and sending, you may need to think, plan, write, rewrite, particularly if it's a request or particularly with a face-threatening email, as we'll talk about in the next video. And don't assume that they'll say yes. Again, be polite, give them the option of saying, yes, I will do it. And if they do, be thankful. Don't just assume, yes, you did it for me, but send them a note saying, thank you so much for helping. Principle 5, send it to the right person and only the right person. Check all the addresses before you hit send, and never use reply all unless all those people really need to see it. So here's the situation. I wanted to write a book chapter, and so I wrote a proposal for it, and the editor, there were two of us that had similar proposals. The editor said, would you consider working together? And if so, we'll send you one another's proposals. I got the letter and I said, yeah, okay, let's take a look. And so I replied all. And then a few days later, I got an email from the other author, and they said, yeah, that's fine. Please send us one another's proposals. 10 days later, I hadn't heard anything. Why? Why is it taking the editor so long to respond? And then I looked and I saw, oh, this other person used reply rather than reply all. And that reply was to me, and the editor never saw it. But nonetheless, we wound up working together and writing a book chapter. But this spent a little unnecessary time. Another situation, my wife and I were working as editors on a book, ironically on email. And as editor, I noticed in editing the English that there was a problem with statistics. And so one of the more senior editors wrote to the authors and said, could you please fix this? Very proper, formal tone, as we'll talk about in the next video. And the author responded likewise in a very proper, formal tone. Oh, we apologize so much. We'll fix this as soon as possible. Thank you for for being so careful. And then the co-author wrote back to the author and said, oh, I don't know whether to say yikes or groan or wow. They really did a careful job of editing. And we got that because she used reply all. And then the author wrote back to the co-author and said, yeah, I was really upset when I got that letter. Wait a minute, wasn't this the same author that just was very formal and saying, oh, I apologize so much, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, same person. But again, they used reply all. Oops. So we weren't supposed to get that. We just sort of ignored it. We published the chapter anyway. But be careful, because anytime that you write an email, it's a written record and it's easily spread. And bad examples can sometimes be used for teaching, just like this. So let's look quickly at the parts of an email. And again, we'll look more at these in detail in the next video. But an email may contain a greeting, a self-introduction, background to the question, the purpose of the email, details or explanation, closing, and signature. And not all are needed in every email. So a lot of these are based on relationship. And the greeting and self-introduction, the closing and signature are all things that develop or promote a relationship between the two individuals involved. So in the greeting, in American English, you would say, Dear Professor Rao. That's considered a proper email in English. But in Indian English, they would say, Respected Professor. They would never say dear, because that's too personal, too close. In Chinese, 老师好. But then Chinese will sometimes write in English, Dear Teacher. But that's not good, because teacher, in American English at least, refers to somebody who's from kindergarten to high school. And so if you're writing to a professor, that's not really proper. So translation doesn't work. Similarly, for a self-introduction, as I mentioned earlier, it's only necessary the first time. And it should be relative to the purpose of the email. What do you want them to do? Why should they do it for you? And some things that are implied in a relationship, for instance, if you're working with a professor you've worked with, sometimes you need to build a relationship. Also in the closing, there's a sort of a rank from no closing to saying thank you to best regards to sincerely that are considered more and more formal. And again, in the next video, we'll look at why you might want to be more formal. So thank you, or your student, again, these are not considered very proper in English emails. In the signature, again, you could put your title and your family name. You could put just your full name, or you could put just your given name. And again, there's a level of formality in this. And as again, we'll see in the next video, signing with a lower formality can indicate a desire to move to a lower formality, a closer relationship. So in the next video, we'll look at more of these in more detail, particularly with regard to these 3 different levels of email.